Hello friends, welcome. Friends, yesterday I saw a tweet by the PIB giving reference to the meeting which was held by our Honorable Minister of Telecommunication of the Stakeholder Advisory Committee on Telecom Service Provider. So this was the second meeting and the Honorable Minister is holding this meeting in order to ensure that the sector is properly handheld and nurtured so that it can contribute to the overall development of our country. That's the whole intent. Now, in this meeting, there was a reference of 6G patent, and the aspirationally India is targeting to hold 10% of the 6G patents which are going to be created worldwide in next 3 years. Now, in this video, I am going to talk about this headline because patent as a subject is quite misunderstood, and that's where I am going to clarify taking this opportunity of this video. So what I am going to do in this video is going to talk about how realistic this target is, because this is very important to understand that when India is making a claim that 10% of all 6G patent globally is going to be created out of Indian renovation in next 3 years, this is quite an optimistic target, and we have to look into the reality whether it is going to be met and how optimistic this is. Now, in order to trying to analyze how optimistic this is, we have to look back in past and try to evaluate India's performance as far as patent creation is concerned in the 5G domain. That will give us a reference as to whether we will be able to meet this target and what is that we need to do in order for us to meet this target of 10% or taking a share of 10% of global 6G patent, because the past is going to give us an indication of the future and it will tell us that what is that we need to do in order to meet, at least come closer to this target, right? May not be able to meet it, maybe in next 5 years, 6 years, whatever may be the time frame, but we should be gunning towards that, right? So that's the point. And the second thing is that we are going to look into the overall perspective of all kinds of wireless technology globally, what the other countries are doing from the point of view of them holding technology rights in wireless technologies, because wireless technologies have turned out to be pretty important and is one of the pillars of development, an indication of a developed country. Means when you are holding intellectual property rights for key innovations like wireless technology, that gives you an indication that you are in the realm of becoming a developed country. Look at US, look at China, that gives you a reference point that you can clearly see. So without wasting any further time, let's deep dive into this video. So what I am going to do is I am going to talk about the past. And the past is very, very important because there was a reference by our telecom minister, the earlier telecom minister, and this is dated 22nd March 2023, that India has secured over 127 patents on 6G. Actually, he didn't mean 6G because 6G is a technology in future. He probably meant 5G. Okay, so let's look at this claim and what happened in past, which will give us some kind of reference. So what happened was that in past, this is an article which I wrote. This article, I am going to give you a description of this article. I am going to paste a link on this article, which will tell us, and this is an article which I wrote on 13th March 2020, which is going to give you a reference of what happened in past, which I am going to explain to you right now. Now, when India became enlightened that look, in 5G technology, we need to move ahead because in past, in 3G, 4G, we haven't been able to accomplish much. So the government really pushed ahead and focused on patent creation because patent became a buzzword in India. So there was a term called LMLC. Now the viewers who are watching this video do not have to get overwhelmed. And even this article that I have written is little technical in nature, you might not understand it. because this contains lot of technical jargon. So what I am going to do today in this video, because I have to explain the past, I am going to explain to you in a very, very simple language what India accomplished and where it failed, right? Now this LMLC technology called low mobility large cell. So let me explain to you what low mobility large cell is. Low mobility large cell means that when you are in rural areas in India, which is typically very sparsely populated, means the most of the geography has density which is far below the normal density levels which you see in the urban areas. Therefore, the coverage of the cell matters, because the larger the coverage radius of the cell, less will be the investment requirement, because you will need less towers. Therefore, Indian innovator, especially led by IITs, they thought that the low mobility large cell is going to be a very important feature for India. Now, what is the meaning of low mobility and large cell? The low mobility means that when the cell size, right, when you're talking about a certain radius of the cell, that cell size is determined by the feature that particular RF correction should be required to support. Now, what happens is that when an object in a domain, in a realm of a particular cell moves at a very high speed, for example, bullet train of 500 kilometers per hour, I'm just giving an example, then what happens is that because of this high speed, the radius of the cell shrinks. Means you are not able to support large distances, and therefore if you consider low mobility means the object moving at low speed, because in rural area you are not going to see bullet trains, you are moving in bullock carts or buses which are going to move at 50 kmph. The roads are not going to support those kind of speed. So low mobility became very, very essential buzzword. So India said that we don't want those kind of specification. For us, the speeds can be very less, and therefore we will be able to support a large cell radius. So please, 3GPP, which is the body which is anchoring the specification for 5G. So they went there and they requested that we would like to contribute to a standard called low mobility large cell. That is the fundamental concept. Now let me expand this further, then you will be able to understand it much better. Now those who have an understanding of wireless technology or may not have an understanding of wireless technology, let me tell you one simple fact, that when you are looking for larger radius, means the coverage radius is going to be high, then primarily you need to operate at low frequencies. You should not be operate at high frequencies, because low frequencies naturally travel far. That is the physics. Physics basic. This is nothing to do with technology, by the way. If you are operating in sub-gigahertz band, like for example in 600 megahertz, 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz, then the coverage area of that cell will be larger compared to bands which are at higher frequency. Simple. Everybody understands that. Therefore, what India did was it positioned this LMLC technology in the 700 megahertz band. So it said that look, 700 is a futuristic band, so we will like to position it in the 700 megahertz band. But unfortunately, what happened was when it positioned the 700 megahertz, this technology in the 700 megahertz band, using another term called pi by 2 BPSK. Again, you don't have to understand this. I'm just making this term because you will see this in this article. When you go down below, you will see that there is a term called pi by 2 BPSK, and you will read through it. Look, this is the term pi by 2 BPSK. So forget about that. So what happened was, when it positioned this technology in the 700 megahertz band, it figured out that, by the way, it will not work. Why? Because 700 is actually an FDD band. It was not a TDD band. It was an FDD, means frequency division duplex. Again, frequency division duplex, time division duplex is not the purpose of this video. Just bear with me. Frequency division duplex, where you have got the uplink and the downlink separated by a guard band. Okay, that's simple as that, right? So when you are transmitting, when the handset is transmitting to the base station, there is one separate block of spectrum. When the base station is transmitting to the handset, there is one separate block of spectrum. That's called FDD. Now in FDD, pi by 2 BPSK technology does not work efficiently. The reason I don't want to explain, otherwise the video will become very long. So they had to basically look for a TDD band. TDD band is a band where you can work pi by 2 BPSK technology. If you read this article, you probably will get some insight as to why TDD band pi by 2 BPSK technology works, which is the LMLC technology which I am talking about. Now the problem in India is that the 5G band, which is the band which is going to be opened up for auction, which got opened up for auction recently in 2022 and in the earlier year which auction happened, is the 3.5 gigahertz band. So when India positioned its LMLC technology based on pi by 2 BPSK, it ended up pushing this technology in the TDD band of 3.5 gigahertz band, and it will also work in 2.3 as well as 2.5, but those bands are currently used by 4G. So the only 5G band which is available was 3.5 gigahertz band. Now you will be able to understand what is the problem here. You initially positioned it for 700 megahertz band, but ended up deploying it over 3.5 gigahertz band, which does not have natural coverage in the rural area. So even if you stretch the coverage by 20% of 3.5 gigahertz band, it is not going to give you any worthwhile benefit. By the way, pi by 2 BPSK technology was nothing new. It was already getting implemented in bands which were above 6 gigahertz band. 6 gigahertz bands are bands which are high frequency band. There this technology was already being used. The reason for that is a separate video. I don't want to. But below 6 gigahertz band it was not used because the benefits that they were trying to derive or they were able to unlock was not giving that kind of benefit. So benefits were low. So nobody wanted, but India pushed this technology in 3.5 gigahertz band. And then on the basis of that, all the patents which were mainly anchored on LMLC got approved by 3GPP on below 6 gigahertz band also, but it doesn't really give us that advantage that we were looking at when we started this whole initiative of LMLC, which started with 700 megahertz band, not with 3.5 gigahertz band. So I wanted to give you this background, and therefore all the patents which are being claimed here by Mr. Vaishnav, the Honorable Minister that time, who was the Telecom Minister, 127 patent, because it is March 22, 2023. So at that time, the 6G part was not that ubiquitous. It started, the discussion started, but it was in the initial stage. So all that happened in past was 5G. So all these 127 patents that are being talked about is basically linked with LMLC, and it probably can be only deployed in the 3.5 gigahertz band, and in 3.5 gigahertz band rural coverage is going to be extremely poor. Even if you stretch the coverage by 20%, it is not going to give you any benefit than deploying in 700. So if you do a native deployment in 700 megahertz band in rural, that is going to be a better proposition without LMLC than deploying in 3.5 gigahertz band with LMLC. I think probably you understand. So that is what the history of India's technology development in 5G has been. So what I am trying to say is that we have to unlock real value. If you are going to continue to do this kind of work, just trying to fit technology wherever you want to without unlocking real value, then whatever technology that we develop is not going to give us the returns that we are looking at, right? So that's very, very important point. I don't want to go further on this, but because the video will become very, very long. Now let's come back to the main discussion part. So when we talk about that claiming 10% of the overall patent pool of 6G, what we need to do? We need to fund, because there has to be some funding coming out. Either industry does that development work themselves, like the telecom players invest in R&D by themselves and create 6G technology by their own fund, or the government makes the funding. There is no third way, right? So I was doing some investigation, and what I did was I did a deep dive on the demands of grant of the current budget which was released recently, just a couple of months back. So if you look at the demands of grant, you will find this is the telecom part, and the other part with the Ministry of Information Technology also I'm going to show it to you. So in the telecom part, you will find that there is a USO obligation fund. You know that USO is being collected by the telecom service provider at a rate of 5% of the revenue share. So this is the USO obligation fund. Out of the USO obligation fund, you are already funding BharatNet. You are aware of this, which is basically optical fiber connectivity in the rural. So in this year, the budget of 2025, we have an allocation of 8,500 crores. Now, under this fund, there is an allocation which the government of India has made on the telecom side, which is to the tune of 400 crores. In the budget of 23-24, the allocation was made to 400 crores, but then the revised budget was 100 crores, means the government could not spend 400 crores. This year again 400 crores allocation has been made. So this is in regard as far as the telecom department is concerned. So remember this 400 crores. Now let's go to Ministry of Information Technology, right? So if I go to Ministry of Information Technology, let me just see if I can search it here. So let me just do information technology, just a minute, in information technology. So if you look at the Ministry of Information Technology here, so you will find that here is the Ministry of, no, it is Ministry of Ayush. Let me just see, Ministry of, yeah, this is the ministry. So if you look at the Ministry of Information Technology, this is what the demand number 27. So remember, 400 crores for DOT. Now here you will find what kind of allocation has been made. The allocation is for Data Protection Board, very small amount. Now if you go down below, you will find that a lot of funds have been allocated for PLI. PLI, you know, we are doing great as far as manufacturing is concerned, though the value add is pretty low, but the volumes are pretty large. So there has been an allocation on PLI for to the tune of 6,200 crores. And then there is one important, allocation this fiscal year, which is India AI Mission, which is of 551 crores, which is right here. And then there is one more design link incentive, which is of the 200 crores. So let's give it, let's give a benefit of doubt, 1,000 crores. Let's assume that in this budget for R&D, if you stretch, I don't think it is going to be possible, but let's say if you stretch to 1,000 crores, and let's do a calculation as a percentage of GDP. So let me do it right in front of you. 1,000 crores in lakh, how much it will become? So I have to divide by 5 zeros. So 00000. What is the GDP? GDP is 329 lakh crores. So divide by 329. So you look at how many zeros are you getting? 00003. So if you multiply this by 100, so let me multiply this by 100. Just a minute. So I'll bring it here. Let me just do done. And then I'll do 100. So because when there are so many zeros, I also get confused. So, but I don't want to commit any mistakes. So I multiply this 100 to convert into percentage. So how much percentage of GDP 1,000 crore is? 0.030%. Now, if this is the percentage of GDP contribution on R&D that we are spending on a yearly basis, imagine the kind of focus and innovation that we will be able to do on the patent front. This is too low a sum. China or any other country, they are spending around 3.2 to 3% of their GDP on R&D. Now I'll show you one document and you will be very surprised to see this document. This was a document which I figured out and I was doing some web research. You will find this. This is basically talking about understanding Chinese government guidance fund. Now, this is an old document. This is March 2021. But this is important because China started the initiative of patent development long back, and therefore they are far ahead as far as the patent development is concerned. So if you look at this document, you will find that there is a reference here. And this reference is actually about, it says that as of the first quarter of 2020, Chinese officials had set up a 1,741 guidance fund regarding registration of target 11 trillion RMB, which is 1.55 trillion USD fund. So how much it is? 1.55 trillion USD. Now you may say it is a fund spread over many years. Yes, of course, right? I am not comparing apples to apples here. So let's look at what is the target that India has. because this is 1.55 trillion, right, as far as R&D is concerned. Now let's look at what is the India's target. Now if you look at India's target, this is an article which I saw in and this is a recent article, July 22 2004, which says budget 2024 government boosts telecom and R&D and eyes 6G leadership eco survey. So eco survey basically talks about what? It says that India allocates 5% of the USO. So let's look at let me make my pen. 5% of the USO now Digital Bharat Nidhi for telecom R&D as per economic survey of 2023-24 of rupees 80,000 crores. So 5% of 80,000 crores is the fund that India has created, not the budget, because I showed you budgetary allocation is much less. So let's do the calculation right in front of you. 80,000 crores, right, multiplied by 5,000, 5%. How much it is? It comes out to be 4,000 crores, right? So 4,000 crores in lakhs, how much it will become? I'll divide by 5 zeros. So it is how much? It is 0.04 lakhs. Now this divided by 329, right, which is the nominal GDP. Now look at this number. This number, if I just multiply it by 100 as I multiplied earlier, let me just take my pen out. And I multiply this by 100, and you will see that what is the percentage of GDP this fund is going to result in as regards innovation in R&Ds. It is going to be 0.012. So this is basically a very half-hearted effort. So when you are claiming to be a huge, you are so aspirational that you are going to take 1/6 of the global patent pool, which is roughly 10%, you have to make proportionate allocation. How you are going to achieve the target? So without having proportionate allocation, spending, structuring, having these IITs motivated not to basically repeat what we did in LMLC, which I've already explained to you, it's a complete waste, because when you deploy LMLC in 3.6 gigahertz, 3.5 gigahertz band, it doesn't serve any purpose because it was meant for 700 megahertz band. We can't be doing development work on 6G like this. And one more thing which I like to point out, that how important funding is, you can clearly see from this document, which is what? This is basically not this document. There was a document which India basically, this is the document. This is also not the document. Now let's look at the document first, because I wanted to show you the 6G Bharat 6G mission document. Here let's look at the deployment of global patent of various of region by headquarter by all the countries. Look at China. China is 48% of the total patent. United States 13%. Korea 4%, Japan 9%, rest of the world only 9%, Europe 17%. Now imagine this particular block. So this is basically includes everything, 3G, 4G, 5G. I'm not talking about this. 6G is a fresh start. Let's assume that. So even, if India is a small slice of 9%, imagine that how heavy lifting that one has to do in order to meet this objective. It will be a huge amount of task. Therefore, making such statements that we are going to hold 6% of the, or 12% or 10% of the overall patent pool without any foundational work is going to be very difficult, right? So I think the 6G document, let me just see, there are so many documents here. One of the document I had listed here, which is, let me just then open it from afresh, because I want to show you that India basically had, so this is the document I was talking about. Let me open this document and I'm going to show you this document. Yeah, this document. So if I go here and search funding, so you'll see that India's vision document as far as 6G is concerned, India themselves, when they wrote this document, they were so much concerned about funding. It's saying that all this more, if you look at this document, it says all this and more can be achieved with a robust and much needed research and development funding mechanism. So this is the part of the Bharat 6G mission statement document. So what I am saying is that when you know that and you release this, that is the funding which is going to be required, then why not create a funding pool? Why not have a structural way of moving forward if you really have an aspirational target of of having a market share of 10% of the patent pool. Now there are many other dimensions to this overall problem statement which I have not covered in this video, because it is also not about fund. It is also about having leverage in the global standard setting organization. It is about participation in the standard setting organization. It is about highly qualified technical people going there, not the bureaucrats going to this body. It's not going to solve the problem. You have to have a technical pool of expert people who can go and negotiate on behalf of India when India is developing those standard tech. Because political arms twisting always will not help. It will result in suboptimal result, what we have seen in the case of LMLC, which has not accomplished the objective that we wanted to achieve, where to unlock real value. Because if you are going to deploy something which is nobody is going to use, you are not going to unlock any real value. Anyway, friends, I thought it is an important video to talk about. Everybody should understand that we need to do some ground level fundamental work in order to ensure that India creates the global leverage in technology and standard. Just by making aspirational statement and not laying the foundation is not going to result in any objective or any result. So anyway, friends, thanks for listening till the end, and I'll come back to you again later with a new video next time. Thank you very much.